Hello everybody, this is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on April 15, 2026. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome back to my channel, welcome newcomers, and we're going to talk about a couple of topics today. And thank you subscriber for sending me a video entitled Gang-stalking, Psycho, Spiritual Surveillance, and Technocratic Terrorism. So I listened to it twice. And I thought it was really interesting. A lot of people have questioned, how are they able to track us? What is the app or the application being utilized to track a targeted individual? Some people have mentioned the RISS system. Some people said it's some private app. Some people have said that they're the next door, etc. But this one has never been discussed. And this YouTube creator, Izzy, is discussing the application called Signal. And he describes it in a way that's very interesting, and I'm going to play some of it and interject, because I don't want to get a copyright strike here, but he describes it. I've never actually considered this before, and he is the first person I have heard to discuss this, and please listen to this carefully.
That is behind the new viral application known as Signal. Now, I know Signal's not a new app, but it has newly been getting a lot of attention due to the way people are using Signal now. Signal is a messaging app that has encrypted software in it, so your messages are basically encrypted and people cannot get into them. Now, the reason Signal is getting so much attention is because people are using it to monitor people. Now,
Okay, so he says that Signal, this application, is being utilized by people a little differently than most applications. He's claiming that Signal is being utilized to monitor people.
mean by monitor people is there are political groups of people in the United States right now that are in certain states, and these people do not like the actions that the federal government is making in conjunction with certain groups of people. We'll put it that way. I am really trying to remain non-political, and I don't want this to be a political video because it's truly about Signal, the app, and the app's creator. That's what this video is about. So to just describe it as they describe it, Signal is an open source encrypted messaging service for instant messaging, voice calls, and video calls. The instant function includes sending text, voice notes, images, videos, and other files. Communication may be one-to-one between users and may involve group messaging. Now, basically, people are using this app to really target groups of people. And
okay, the key here is that this app is being utilized to target groups of people. And he goes into detail on how it's being utilized, because evidently he has listened in to Signal. I have not downloaded Signal. I don't think I have. I don't know. I think maybe a year or two ago, I downloaded it. I was confused with it, deleted it, and I'm not into the messaging apps. But evidently, people are downloading Signal to target groups of people and possibly targeted individuals.
And illegally, like very illegally. And this is creating quite the scandal, because it's not just like 5 or 10 people in these chats that are monitoring individuals. It's groups of like 80,000 people. So essentially, entire cities are creating these group chats where they are partitioned off in different areas of the city, and they are running license plates, creating no-go zones for certain types of people, and they are just really kind of using this app to act as basically a police force.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is that people are using these apps as groups. They're forming groups. They're partitioning these groups. They could be an entire city or a town, or partitions groups within a city or a town. And they are running license plates. They're acting like a quasi police state or department. Now, what comes to mind is organized stalking, community stalking, vigilante stalking, hate crimes. So this might not actually be the government. This could be subversive groups within any neighborhood. It could be InfraGard. It could be retired people. It could be people that have a hatred for certain types of people. So let's continue with his commentary.
Now, momentarily, we're going to get into my personal comparisons that I have for this, but what I want to do before that is I want to show some images and videos to ensure you this is a lot further than people just sort of looking out for their neighbors or kind of ensuring a sort of political vibe is going on in an area. This is borderline insurgency, paramilitary type of movement, in my opinion, and in the opinions of former infantrymen in the U.S. Army who have made statements on this. But let's look at these videos and recordings real quick.
Did you hear him? He said that it appears as if these groups are paramilitary in nature, and that even other individuals who have that background have been commenting on these groups that are forming in the Signal app.
Now, this is a 33-second video of just the contacts that are in this one specific chat for one specific zone. There is a lot of people involved in this, and that's not all. This is a full-on training manual that has an index.
So he's saying that in one of these groups, they actually have a training manual, and that they're acting like a paramilitary group. Now I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. This is a 55-minute video, and if I remember correctly, when he gets to around the 20 or 30-minute mark, he starts talking about specific targeting. And of course, you know, I fast forward to an advertisement. 1 second.
For the first time in modern history, college student graduates.
That's not really what the app is said to be, right? That's not really. It's not called back and forth. It's not called messaging. It's not called talky talk. It's called signal. You're signaling when someone is near that you don't want to be around.
Okay, what he's saying is the app is very specific. It's called Signal for a reason, because they're signaling when someone is around that they don't want to be around. Doesn't this sound like signaling when a targeted individual is near to harass them, to synchronize the harassment? So this application, this app could be one of the many methods that our stalkers utilize to harass us, or at least some of the groups around the country. It might not just be against quote unquote real targeted individuals. It could be about anyone that they don't like in the neighborhood, in the community.
And the appropriate actions are being taken by these political extremists, in my opinion. Now, the interesting thing about the creator of Signal is he himself had a name change. Now, originally when kind of recording this video, I didn't really think about the name aspect of it. Okay, the name thing is just a theme that keeps appearing, and it's something that I'm following. I'm following my intuition.
So what he's saying here, because I listened to this twice, is that he studied how people change their names, the types of names that they utilize, and the meanings behind the names. So now the gentleman who created the Signal app had a full name, but he changed it. He changed it to a really bizarre name. And he changed it to a name called Moxie. I don't know. The name Moxie sounds like something that you name your little yappy dog, like a little Moxie. But it sounds very bizarre. And it sounds somewhat nefarious in not only how he changed his name, but the methods being utilized by these groups within the Signal app. Very nefarious, as appears to be the inventor of the app, or the creator of the app.
His name was Matthew Rosenfeld.
Matthew Rosenfeld.
Matthew Rosenfeld changed his name.
He changed his name.
Moxie Marlin Spike.
He changed his name to Moxie Marlin Spike. I don't. That sounds like a very unusual name. And from what this gentleman is saying is that he changed it legally from Matthew Greenfeld to Moxie something Spike. I mean, it's very bizarre.
I think that is a little interesting. If we look at all of the technocrats that are currently running a certain part of reality, they're sort of leading the charge as we move further into the meta-aeon of Lucifer, as I call it, or into the age of Aquarius, right? All of these people, maybe not all of them except for really like one, are of a certain...
Okay, I'm going to skip past this because basically he's saying that many of the people that have invented these technologies, like Palantir and Signal and other technologies, are of a certain background, I'll say. And he's on to something there. I'm not exactly sure of the meaning of it, but it's quite bizarre that this guy who invented Signal changed his name to this weird Moxie kind of name. So I'm going to fast forward just a little bit more, because then he starts talking about targeting.
Kayak told me when a book to
And
get
of
a great
course,
rental
once
car
again,
deal.
I get an
Guess we can stop
advertisement
scrolling
when
for
I
travel
fast
advice.
forward.
On every house. I think that's ridiculous. I think I should be able to buy cocaine on the Silk Road using my Bitcoin. Not CCTV, it's not security cams. It is people ratting on their neighbors and using technology to do it.
Okay, he just said It's people ratting on their neighbors and using technology to do it. People ratting on their neighbors and using technology to do it. And I have to apologize for the rumbling in the background with the sound on my laptop. That's what the criminals have done to my laptop. They've disabled the camera, the sounds, the battery doesn't stay in anymore, it doesn't charge. My fairly new laptop when I moved here from New Jersey to Kentucky has been completely destroyed. Because that's what the animals here, the terrorists, do here in Jackson County, Kentucky.
This is very bad, as you can imagine. Now, Moxie has written essays like in 2013, we should all have something to hide.
So what he's saying is the creator of this app says that we should all have something to hide, that there's something about this creator, Moxie, that he's into anarchy. And there might be some underlying nefarious reason for having created an app called Signal, where groups of people get together to signal each other when someone that they're targeting is in close proximity. So I will post a link to this video in the description section because it's quite interesting. I did have to listen to it twice because some of it I'm just not understanding how the app actually works. But this could definitely be an app that's being utilized to harass us. So I want to talk also about the dark triad in psychology, the kinds of people, the personalities that are employed to stalk us. And these are not just your neighbors. These are people at the higher up level. These are the deletes, the deletes and all the people below them. They have very different personality traits than targeted individuals, okay? So the dark personality consists of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, okay? And these people are extremely sinister, cunning, crafty. They very often have underlying other personality disorders. They may have addiction problems, hatred, and the tendencies are towards violence and criminal activity. And these people run businesses, they run corporations. They also employ a lot of very manipulative tactics. And I want to discuss the manipulation tactics that are utilized. I mean, most targeted individuals are aware of some of these, but you may not have considered some of the other manipulation tactics. They're powerful tools that some individuals use to influence and control others for personal gain. And obviously, all targeted people are being utilized for personal gain. So this kind of dark psychology delves into the study of these manipulative tactics. So the first one that we're all aware of is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which an individual or group is purposely made to question their own memories, perceptions, and sanity. This can involve tactics such as denial, misdirection, contradiction, and lying, ultimately leading to the targeted individual or group to feel confused, anxious, or uncertain about their own reality. And this is what happens when, let's say you FOIA request your local government, and after 9 months they finally tell you that no, you're out, no, they don't say you're right. It's like, no, we do not have such a document. Yeah, little Bobby Edwards, he never actually did write a letter telling you that your property taxes would be increased almost $1,500, and there was no method to dispute it. That would be a form of gaslighting. Then there's emotional blackmail. Well, this happens in families too. Parents do this with their children. Emotional blackmail is a manipulative tactic that involves exploiting a person's emotions through guilt, fear, or shame to get them to comply with the manipulator's desires. It can include threats to withhold love, approval, support, unless the victim meets the manipulator's demands, taking advantage of the victim's emotional vulnerabilities. Then there's lying and deception. Lying and deception is dishonest. This is often used as a manipulation tactic. Manipulators may fake information, conceal the truth, or distort facts to benefit themselves. This sounds something like lawyers do this kind of thing. Like they're deceptive and they lie. These actions gradually break down trust and leave victims susceptible to additional manipulation. Then, of course, there's love bombing. Love bombing is a deceptive strategy used by manipulators to overwhelm their targets with an outpouring of affection and attention. This can involve excessive flattery, lavish gifts, and constant admiration, all aimed at creating a deep emotional reliance that makes it challenging for the victim to break free of their influence. Isolation is something that's a tool of the narcissist. It's what happens to most targeted people, right? They want to isolate the victim. Manipulators employ isolation as a means to undermine the support systems of their victims, thus heightening their dependency. And this involves severing connections with friends, family, or other sources of support, allowing the manipulators, the controllers, to exert control and restrict the victim's ability to seek assistance. And this is because they're so scared, right? These little scaredy weirdos, they have to do this. And also remember, for targeted people, we are test subjects in some way. They're studying us. So the way it works is, in research, usually the test subject is in a laboratory. They're isolated. The little mice, the little rats, they've got their cages and stuff, and they're isolated. They're isolated because they don't want the mouse or the rat to experience any joys or pleasures outside of their controlled environment, because they don't want to tarnish the results of whatever it is they're inflicting upon the mouse or the rat. So, for instance, like what they're doing to me here in Jackson County, Kentucky, is they have infected me with Morgellons. Right now, like my skin on my face feels like sandpaper. The same as my ears. I've taken some photos of it. I will be posting them online at some point because it's absolutely disgusting that this is happening here. And I've realized in doing some research that this absolutely was done to me through the environment and through the air. And it could possibly be the neurotoxins, the perfume that is being sprayed on my property at night. This perfumey smell. And it's also incited by the microwave, the pulse microwave radiation in my bedroom and through this laptop. So then there's the fear mongering. Manipulators can use fear as a tool to control and influence others. They achieve this by instilling feelings of anxiety, uncertainty, or dread, creating a sense of urgency and dependence on the manipulator for protection or guidance, which I don't know any targeted person that relies on their manipulator for protection or guidance. Then they guilt trip you. Manipulation through guilt tripping is a tactic which individuals seek to control others by placing the burden of their emotions or actions on them. And this often involves exaggerating their own suffering or portraying themselves as the victims. Like your neighbor's like, oh, yes, I have to live down the block from that woman. Oh, it's so horrible for me. Meanwhile, they're the ones that are inflicting all the pain and suffering and harassment on the targeted person, right? So they flip the script, right? They flip the script where they're now the victims to elicit feelings and gain compliance from the other person. Then, of course, there's a projection. Manipulators, narcissists, stalkers, harassment people. They resort to projection to avoid taking responsibility for their faults or their negative traits. So through projection, they attribute their own shortcomings to others. Like when they throw trash on your property, it's because of their trash, right? If they throw poop on your on your porch or whatever, it's because they're shit, right? When they leave a tongue, right? They leave a tongue on your porch is because they are hiding in the shadows and not speaking, right? Through projection, they attribute their own shortcomings to others, making their victims accountable for their actions. This manipulation allows the manipulators to sidestep accountability and avoid facing the consequences of their behavior, but the consequences will always follow them. Then they use these intimidation tactics, like leaving a double-headed dildo in your mailbox or throwing grenades on your driveway. Intimidation is a deliberate strategy employed to induce fear and subjugate others, hoping that they'll run away and leave their property behind so they could steal it. They're manipulative individuals. They use it to enforce compliance through various means such as aggressive conduct, verbal threats, demonstrations of authority, like leaving a tongue on the porch. This behavior is aimed at exerting control over others and can have detrimental effects on the mental and emotional well-being of the victims and their pets. Mirroring. This is a psychological manipulation technique used to build rapport and trust. It mimics the victim's behavior, preferences, and values, creating a false sense of familiarity or connection. However, with the gang stalkers, with the community harassment, it's a mirroring, it's a mockery. They copy you as a form of mimicry or mockery. Flattery and charm. Manipulators employ flattery and charm to disarm their victims and win their trust. Oh, that's not happening here. They achieve this by appealing to the victim's ego, inundating them with excessive compliments, establishing a positive connection that can obscure rational thinking and enable manipulative behavior. Well, this is one that we all experience. I know that I did when I first realized that I was targeted. I didn't really know what was going on. Is cognitive dissonance. The manipulation of cognitive dissonance entails deliberately creating conflicting beliefs or emotions within the victim's mind. It's achieved by introducing contradictory information or experiences which sow confusion and amplify the manipulator's control over the victim's thoughts and actions. And I'll give you an example. I think I've mentioned it before that when this started happening to me when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive in Alpha, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as original owner and became targeted there, I would come home and I would notice that my furniture was deteriorating. My carpets were deteriorating. It's like I'm the only one that lives there. There's nothing wrong with them. I had security. I had alarm systems. I had a centrally monitored system. I installed baby monitors. I even had trail cameras in my backyard. So how is this happening? When I've got cameras everywhere, how could this be happening? That it made no sense to me. I never thought that somebody was actually getting into my house when I had all that security set up. So that was the cognitive dissonance. Then there's something called foot in the door technique. It's a strategy that involves getting someone else to agree to a small request before presenting a larger one. This method is based on the idea that once a person has agreed to something small, they're more likely to agree to something larger later. And I would imagine that they use this kind of technique on stalkers, in order to participate. Then there's social proof. Manipulators leverage the concept of social proof to take advantage of people's inclination to adhere to perceived keyword, social norms. They achieve this by providing evidence of others' compliance and endorsement, which creates a sense of social pressure that sways the victim's behavior. Then, of course, there's the bait and switch. This manipulation is a deceptive tactic that initially attracts the victim with an appealing offer or promise, only to change the conditions later by providing something entirely different. Then there's authority exploitation. I would imagine that they utilize this manipulative technique to gain the participation of your stalkers. You know, when people come into the community with the fake badges and stuff, they're not really law enforcement. This exploits perceived authority or expertise to sway and control others. They present themselves as knowledgeable or influential figures so they can gain the trust or compliance of their victims. And it has been stated that sheriff's departments give out fake badges to some of your stalkers, right? So some of your stalkers will approach people with these fake badges like they're special or something, you know. They have manipulative seduction. Involves using charm, flattery, or romantic or sexual advances to manipulate others. This would be the honey trap or the honey pot. They exploit their target's emotional and physical desires, and the manipulators gain control and influence over them. And they'll steal information from you. So they'll send a honey pot or honey trap and manipulate you into giving up information that they'll use against you in the future. Then there's triangulation. This is a deceitful tactic used by manipulators to sow discord and rivalry between individuals. And they do this in the targeted community. They triangulate people in chats, in the comments section, by creating fake accounts. It deflects attention from their own manipulative behavior and ensures continued control over the situation. Then, of course, there's the narcissistic discard and re-ideation. Manipulators often employ a pattern of behavior where they shift between idealizing and devaluing the victims. This is done to exert control and ensure that their victims remain emotionally attached. Initially, they shower the targets with praise and affection, only to suddenly retract it, which leads to feelings of bewilderment and increased reliance on the manipulator. And this sometimes happens, like when I moved into this community knowing nobody. Actually, the people that are stalking me and harassing me now, you know, approached me as that they were welcoming me into the community when they really were not. Okay. Then, of course, they will withhold information. Manipulators strategically withhold information to control the narrative and restrict the victim's, the target's comprehension of a situation. This deceptive tactic distorts their perception, enabling the manipulator, the stalker, the harasser, the community-based agent, the infraguard creepo, to influence the victim's thoughts and behaviors more effectively. And then there's gaslighting by proxy. This is another form of psychological manipulation in which the perpetrator covertly encourages others to engage in behaviors that are harmful to the victim unknowingly. This can involve enlisting the help of third parties to reinforce the false narratives, distort the victim's reality, or even directly participate in the gaslighting. The manipulator may use various tactics to persuade others to doubt the victim's, the target's perceptions and experiences, ultimately causing further distress and confusion. Then there's reverse psychology. This is a manipulation technique a psychological strategy that subtly influences others by suggesting the opposite of what's desired. This technique is often employed by individuals to provoke specific reactions or behaviors that align with their true intentions. By presenting an idea or suggestion in a reverse manner, the manipulator aims to elicit a response that serves their underlying purpose, often without the target being consciously aware that they're being manipulated. Then, of course, there's the shame and the humiliation, and we've discussed the humiliation rituals on the channel. Manipulators resort to shaming and humiliation to exert control over others. These tactics aim to undermine the self-esteem and sense of worth of their victims, ultimately weakening their resistance and increasing compliance. I don't know of anybody that has that's worked on yet. And then there's the Stockholm Syndrome. This is a psychological condition in which individuals who have been held captive or abused develop an emotional connection and empathy towards their captors. And I hear that sometimes on the channel, oh, you've got to forgive your stalkers, pray for them. No, I don't. No, I'm sorry. I don't have the Stockholm Syndrome. I do not want any emotional connection. I have no empathy towards my captors. I think they're predators, they're sick, they're depraved lunatics. But this can happen as a result that the captors use combination of kindness and manipulation. I have no kindness going on here, leading the victim to sympathize with or even defend their captor's actions. Not happening in this lifetime, okay? And then we've got them playing the victim card. The manipulators, they pretend that they're the ones that are being victimized. They want to invoke sympathy and induce feelings of guilt. They want to divert the attention away from their own deceitful behavior and pretend that they're the ones being targeted. They're the ones that are being victimized. They're cunning. They present themselves as powerless. They're being the ones that are being unjustly treated. They're being unfairly treated by the targeted person. But this is all to fulfill their own selfish desires. These are all emotional manipulation techniques. Constant guilt tripping, gaslighting, distorting and denying facts, making you question your memory, your perception, your sanity. You are not crazy. These manipulators, these stalkers, they're the ones that are nuts. So anyway, the takeaway from this is that there are so many tools of manipulation used by narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, and the people that have placed you in this program that are stalking you. The other takeaway is that there is an app called Signal. Signal, it has been determined, is an app used by many subversive groups. They form groups, group partitions, to literally spy on and target people. And they signal to each other within this app if somebody that they have been watching is in close proximity. So beware. If you have any other information on the use of the Signal app, if you've utilized it, if you're familiar with it, please leave a comment down below. I'm really curious.